European Commissioner, Lord Hill, has called for a period of calm in the row about the £1.7 billion surcharge that David Cameron is disputing. And the leading medical body in England is urging doctors to question the value of all that they do to try to cut waste in the NHS. The BBC News is read by Zeb Soames.
A major investigation is to be carried out into UK banking, focusing on personal current accounts and business lending. The inquiry will be conducted by the Competition and Markets Authority, which is concerned about the dominance of the four largest banks. The watchdog said there were still high levels of customer dissatisfaction within the market, and that many people found it hard to compare services to switch banks. Here's our business editor, Kamal Ahmed.
This is within the day of the revelation again of Ewan Brown, the knighthood that Ewan Brown got from the Queen, who's illegitimate. Within 2 weeks of us exposing again the illegitimacy of the Crown and the massive defrauding of Ewan Brown's overlapping directorships in all the banks, including HBOS, the RBS, Lloyds Banking Group, from the same business register in the city of Edinburgh. He's now the boss, the Chancellor at St Andrews University that we've talked about in recent days. Let's hear some more of the hypocrisy for this morning.
For customers, we see a lot of dissatisfaction at the moment, and they find it difficult to shop around and compare between the different services and the prices they would pay for retail banking.
Britain's big four banks, Lloyds, Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC and Barclays, control 77% of the current account market and 85% of the business account market. UK banking is already highly competitive. The new bank says TSB that it is time to break the Big Four stranglehold on the sector.
Britain's new European Commissioner has been speaking about how to resolve the latest issue to sour relations between the government and the EU, the 1.7...
The day after we revealed that Barroso was trained in Georgetown University by Henry Kissinger,
called for the situation to be calmed down and for the facts to be looked at. He said the debate about Britain's membership had entered a lively stage, but he and David Cameron believed the best thing for Britain was to...
Within the week of the revelations of Bernie Ecclestone, who covers up Tony Blair's gift of the EU presidency with a relatively small bang, but also completely obfuscates the presence of Trident 3 and Trident 4 scams from Ecclestone Square, run in London, entirely within the thrall of the Scottish Government, who could have freed Scotland with the release of that corrupted knowledge that Trident 3 and Trident 4 are run by Swift Incorporated, massive laundering tools and mercenary army leaders like Tim Spicer, the head of the SNP, the former First Minister, have had all of that information relayed to them. None of them have revealed anything about what the Westminster government does and the scamsters in the City of London could do on the issue of human extinction.
And the jobs it created. So he said he thought it would be good to address the question of EU membership in a referendum and described it as a boil that needs to be lanced. In his new role, Lord Hill stressed he was required to act in the interest of all the EU's 28 states, not just promote British views. And he said the EU faced a problem. People didn't trust it, and it needed to stop intruding into too many areas of national life.
40 senior legal figures have warned that it would be harder to bring terrorists and child abusers to justice in Britain if the government did not retain the powers of the European arrest warrant. The warrant, which was introduced in 2004, replaced separate extradition arrangements between the EU member states. MPs will vote next week on whether the UK will remain signed up to it. Here's our political correspondent, Chris Mason.
In a letter.
See my letters on my website to the head of Europol, the head of Interpol. They ignore all of the crimes, as Barroso did, as did his news editor, Miss Pia Arland Hansen. I can't remember how you pronounce that name. Barroso has resigned in shame. The EU has resigned in shame in terms of the figureheads at the top of it. The law enforcement links to Scotland are now being investigated by yours truly, and what I discovered in half an hour last night, that Scotland's Attorney General runs an office in London where there are 40 employees who are rotating employees. They are not appointed by the government, they're appointed as freelancers. None of them are named at any point in time. These organisations stitch up the geopolitical news and they keep Scotland in a cabal of Westminster profiteers for decade after decade. That's Lord Wallace of Tankerville, Orkney, Apnea, the Lamonts that crashed the economy in the 1980s, that put us in the negative equity crisis, that are friends of Charles Guthrie, the NATO warlord, and on the board at NM Rothschild's bank with him. This is law enforcement in Scotland by unnamed personnel. The office in London where Lord Tankerville, who happens to be a Lib Dem like Michael Moore and all of the people that I'm revealing, is for a decade now, since 2010, that man was put in power, and he's still in power. There's nobody else prepared to fill his boots, because all of them know that they're under scrutiny now. There's a Lamont tied to the Scottish Chambers of Commerce, and in the Borders region in particular, he has 40 plus directorships. Some of them are with Morton's, the law firm. Morton is also a World War II criminal name, profiteering in the intel sector, widely exposed by Greg Hallett. None of that is talked about in the news. Even the local newspapers are run by an organisation called Johnson Press. It's indirectly owned by the world owners. Ashley Highfield is a friend of mine. He refuses to give me an interview. I write to the Southern Reporter reporting the Trident scam. The editor is Susan Windram. I have asked for meetings with that woman in the period since Tankerville was appointed as a law lord in 2010. She refuses to meet me. She refuses to publish any of the letters that I send reporting the banking crisis to the Southern Reporter and Johnson Press. Ashley Highfield's mission in life is, like Rupert Murdoch, to get rid of the hard copy print runs, to get rid of the employees, and to sell us into news slavery with electronic news released by Rebecca Brooks, Andy Coulson, and all of those people that have now been employed by the British government, indirectly through the Chipping Norton drinking set. I made a video yesterday on the massive jokes that they share amongst their friends about the killing of children in Scotland in 1957, the year I appeared on the scene, in a place called, somewhere near Glasgow, something Coat, it's escaped me. And I've discovered some very interesting directorships from the same something Coat in Glasgow, who include names like, the names are Drummond, and Drummond, there's another law lord that's a hyphenated name. His name is Drummond Young, and I've found him on the business register, and it's very interesting. Sorry, I'm neglecting the BBC's vitally important news because it's pivotal for the story I'm trying to tell about how they fool the people and concurrently steal with them. Let's have another wee listen.
Lord Hill is giving his first speech today as Britain's new commissioner in Brussels.
He's not exactly a household name, not yet anyway, but he is David Cameron's point man in Brussels, and there is nothing more crucial to Mr. Cameron's leadership than our future.
That's Baron Humphrys. Did you ken he was a baron? It's all over the videos I've made in the last couple of days. It's all over the linkage to the Basil Fawlty jokes, the John Cleese being in the tax havens, that little blonde guy that runs the Virgin Atlantic thing as a scam and wins all the infrastructure projects, who's the drug czar for the world. They are cheating and stealing and killing, and they're proclaiming that the great event that happened when they pulled out of Syria this year, or last year, late last year, was a great thing for democracy, which is proclaimed all over my website. The morning I was talking to people who knew David Kelly and of the reasons behind his murder, and help with weapons provision by making containers that allow you to move nuclear weapons around the world, they called me at the same time as I was due on the river, and at the same time I was talking to them about ending the tyranny in Syria. I got a call from a customer asking me to gan on the river, and when I did not show up because of my priority rankings and making Syria more important, I got the sack from my employer in the Selkirk Freemasons. It happens again and again and again. They victimise the innocents, they corrupt the news, and then they relay it to you using people that are in the peerage, that are part of the Quisling treasonous team. That's Baron John Humphrys. His wife is a baroness too. Look at my webpage, look at the Bob Geldof jokes, look at all of the charity jokes, all of the people that are involved in all of those scams, Stephen Redgrave, J.K. Rowling, all of them now know that God is looking down on it, and they know that my pathology theory linking evil human behaviours to what happened to Lord Patton, who's not been heard of since May the 17th, even although he is the head of the BBC, the corrupted BBC, he is the head of Oxford University, he's the head of the Oxford Russia Fund, he's very interested in Barroso, and he's very interested in Henry Kissinger's activities when he was on the board of the Future of Russia Foundation with the Rothschilds and Prince Charles. It's all a stitch up, and you are the victim. You listen to Radio Borders. Radio Borders is also just a vent to deceive the people, to trivialise everything that happens around them. And Radio Borders is played in the local surgery where the healthcare scams are perpetrated, and they've tried to section me from the local surgery because I'm a threat to this system. Bye bye.
The facts, and to look at a practical solution to the challenges that various member states face. The problem is, though, the political problem, as you know better than most people, is that people don't actually want to calm things down at the moment, politically.
John has a wee lump on his throat occasionally, and the woman Ray that reads the news in Scotland is terrified because she kens that all the presenters up here get things called adhesions in their abdominal cavity, and it's incredibly painful, and you can hear her quake when she reads the headlines, which is false news up here, led by Ali Moffat, the boss at St Andrews University, and Jim Naughtie, the total quisling to his country, who's writing about the most influential people in the Queen's 60-year reign. But he's no declaring the illegitimacy of that Queen like me, which is why I'm being persecuted in both hemispheres. In the southern hemisphere, I was booted out at Otago University, even although I was the best academic in the medical school on 3 campuses, and I led my department to become the best on those 3 campuses in that medical school. When I appointed somebody that wanted to study Agent Orange in the South Pacific, they got rid of me really quickly. That boy that came there with a massive scholarship from, I can't remember, I think it was Vietnam. It was Vietnam. He came to me with the funding to do a studentship. We could not find anybody who would look into the deployment of Agent Orange in the toxicology sector or any of the outcomes on the defoliation program and the massive deployment of that illegal weapon by America and its allies in that vicious war that we talked about the other day, when we talked about the conscription of Scottish soldiers to go and fight people they had never met who were like them, ordinary working people. Everything is down on communism. Everything that is down on communism is a war crime. Let's hear what Baron Humphrys is stammering about now.
Member states. We need to make sure that we try and do a smaller number of bigger things better and stop the bigger number of smaller things, the intruding into areas of national life that I seem to remember years ago Douglas Hurd calling the nooks and crannies of national life, and get that balance right. Then how do you see your own position, Europe, on the Commission? Are you effectively David Cameron's eyes and ears in Brussels? My job is to act as a European Commissioner acting in the interest of all 28 countries. And then there is the bit where...
Okay, so that's the European Commissioner. When I wrote about Salibi from South Africa, that's the South Africa that is corrupted with the nuclear weapons scandals and the deployment and the moving of those nuclear weapons around the world. My correspondence was received, the crimes of that person were acknowledged, and Salebi was banged up as former head of the RSA police force, then head of Interpol, and he has got a token sentence like the leaders of the Egyptian juntas who get funded by America with $1 billion a year to suppress their nation. All of it is up front. Look up Latin America on Wikipedia and American troops abroad. Latin America is not Latin America anymore. I've disclosed the history of Latin America, the deployment of the word peso in almost every country across that vast continent. You saw the stitch up that was the World Cup, the manipulated results in the games to shock the people, and you heard from John Patterson about the betting scandals around those things. The whole of the world is a role play. It is tragic, and it is coming out, and the epicenter for me is law enforcement in Scotland. And Lord Tankerville, there's not much on you, your personal background or your personal involvement in crimes, but the regime that you run, the appointment of anonymous officials in London and in Edinburgh, and the acknowledgement that many of them are in the speculative society, is damning. It will bring you down, and I will bring you down really quickly. You're one of the typical MPs and politicians of the modern day and age. I've seen the speeches that you write out of the Hebridean Islands. None of them go for anything explicit. All of them, all of those massive rotating offices with anonymous office bearers, are trying to explain Scottish law to English politicians and tyrants. And we already have divorced nations in terms of the laws of our united country. People on both sides of the border, 500 of them minimum, have received the news on the Trident 3 and Trident 4 scandal in Eccleston Square, London. Nobody has released it to the free press. That email that I sent to Nicola Sturgeon, to Miss Patricia Tom, because Miss Patricia Tom is registering my correspondence as my bad behaviours with Jedburgh Sheriff Court. When I met Sheriff Hutton the other day, he told me I must not write to Sheriff Halley, who was on my case, who heard my pre-hearing, and he's told me, that's Hutton, that's Sheriff Kevin, the man I just named as the new person in charge of my lawsuit at Jedburgh Sheriff Court, has told me that I'm not allowed, he has not defined which law he's making this order on, but he's told me not to communicate with Sheriff John Halley at Arnott Manderson Advocates, because Sheriff John Halley has already been made aware of the Trident 3 and Trident 4 scams out of Eccleston Square. Awareness in crime in UK law is complicity in UK law. And the Sheriff Kevin Drummond, I don't know whether or not Sheriff Drummond is related in any way to Sheriff Drummond Young, who's one of the head law enforcers in Scotland. You heard about the porridge joke, you heard about the links to Lord Mackay of Clashfern yesterday, and you know now that all of this is run out of secret for-profit societies in the city of Edinburgh that scam the people on Skye in the Skye Bridge project. Robbie the Pict, I'd love to chat to you about the Skye Bridge project and the new crimes that are perpetrated by Sir Ewan Brown at the Speculative Society of Edinburgh, who's now the Chancellor at St Andrews University, with Ali Moffat, the news manipulator, as the rector. We're stitched up good and proper. 40 people get salaries in rotating appointments for Lord Tankerville that I've never heard of till yesterday. They do nothing but try and explain the complexities across the border that mean that the innocents get convicted. In both hemispheres, their students are driven out of elite scholarships to discover what the G8 and the G20 have done to the South Pacific and the Pacific Rim in terms of war crimes. And I'm nominated by the chemists at Otago University just before they boot me out for a Nobel Prize in Chemistry. I've got the documents in the attic and I will publish them at a later date. Yet they think it's really, really clever to alienate intelligent people, to render them jobless on the day that that person is working on making peace in Syria on behalf of David Cameron. And now that activist is a real danger to their system. Let's see what John Humphrys is talking about now.
In literature, the pig family drive by a broken down truck. As the pig family head to the beach for a picnic, they encounter every conceivable vehicle, creature and obstacle.
Light entertainment from Radio 4 now. Anyway, bye bye for now. More later on crooked law enforcement across Great Britain.